Hi, happy Friday, everyone. Sorry I couldn't be there. I'm up in Burlington, Mass. today learning about technology to hopefully bring back to Fairhaven, and hopefully bring back to our classroom to, try new things out and do some cool things in the future. So I'm here in spirit, I guess. But that was a good opportunity for our class to review the Cold War and what we've talked about so far. So let's remember, when we talk about the Cold War, it's not necessarily a heated war. I mean, it's competitive in all senses of the word, but when we think of war, we typically think of hostile fighting, and Cold War is fighting just in a competitive, non-physical way. So I thought it'd be best if we started from the very beginning of the Cold War and talk about the first conference that we talked about, Yalta Conference, for example. Now, at the Yalta Conference, those three people you see on the screen, Churchill, Truman, Stalin, they were viewed as three equals coming out of World War II. And they were going to be the ones that organized post-war plan for peace. As we could see, Stalin's on the outside. Not so much on this picture, but in other pictures we could definitely see it. But they agreed to divide up Germany, divide up Berlin equally, and they also set the United Nations, an international peacekeeping organization with 50 members, 11 on the Security Council. Remember, they had the big five that could veto anything: France, Britain, United States, Russia, or I should say Soviet Union in this case, and China. And once again, just like the Treaty of Versailles, they're forcing Germany to pay reparations after World War II. And remember the Yalta Conference, Stalin was supposed to allow the Eastern European countries to choose their own government. Well, he sort of did. They all happened to choose communism, which is a little bit fishy, we would all think. Majority of post-World War II decisions were made at this conference. And we didn't really talk about this one too much, but again, the big members attend the Potsdam Conference in 1945. And just to divvy up the reparations, but not so important. We really focus on the Yalta Conference. There's a changing landscape in the world because the Soviets are really expanding eastward, or in the eastern part of Europe, excuse me. So USSR expands, and so what Stalin wants to do is he wants to create a bunch of buffer states. So if Western Europe ever decided to attack, they wouldn't really be able to get to the homeland of USSR. Yeah, they could get to Poland and Czechoslovakia and Hungary and things like that, but these are his satellite states, really just to protect home. And oh boy, the Iron Curtain. We saw a cartoon similar to this. Remember, Churchill specifically chose this phrase to say, hey, they're the ones that divided Europe, not the good guys, not the capitalists, not the Democrats. So he decides to coin the term Iron Curtain, blaming the division of Europe solely on the Soviets. Now this is where we start to demonize the opponent in both sides. So if you're a Soviet, you look at the capitalist and democracies and say, those are the bad guys. And if you're a capitalist democracy, you say, hey, the Soviets and the communists, they're the bad guys. So first we get the Truman Doctrine. What this basically says is, look, if you reject communism, the United States will support you. So let me give examples of this in Greece and Turkey, and then we want to help them from falling to communism. And this really begins our policy of containment, our Ziploc, our Rubbermaid around communism. If we can contain it, it won't spread anywhere else. Just remember we talked about in class the spreading stain. Okay, if you drop something or if something spills on your shirt, you can see it expand. They want to avoid that expansion, so they want to put a Ziploc around communism and make sure it stays where it is. Because if it spreads to other continents or other parts of the world, it won't stop spreading. Just like the Soviets viewed on capitalism and democracy. And don't forget about the Marshall Plan. This is where the United States would provide any economic aid to countries in Western Europe after World War II. Remember, all the fighting was there, so they were absolutely destroyed. And think about this. It's political. If we didn't help them, if the United States didn't help, then maybe Stalin would have helped, and maybe they might have converted to communism. Let's not forget about the Berlin situation going on. Now, what happens is the United States, France, and Britain give up their claims in West Berlin and West Germany. And Stalin is fearful that West Germany and West Berlin are going to have a sense of independence and nationalism, and they'll rise up and overtake Eastern Germany and spread. Remember that spreading stain. So what he figures is to send a message without physically fighting war. So he provides a blockade around Berlin so no food and no fuel could reach West Berlin. So now the Allies have to help these people. So this creates the Berlin airlift. So they fly planes into Berlin to provide food for 11 straight months. He can attack the planes, but that fears sparks war, especially with our nuclear weapons that he doesn't have just yet. So eventually he lifts the blockade, and it does show that the United States and Britain and the West in general was prepared to stand up against USSR and communism, because they risked war too, flying in all the supplies. But you can see the deep hostility between the East and West and the hatred that's building between the two sides. And don't forget the alliances that are formed. We've got NATO forming in 1949, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, military alliance for defensive purposes. It's got Canada, it's got the United States, it's got 10 other Western European nations. Now don't forget, if you're the Soviet Union and you see NATO being formed, an alliance, so a group of countries coming together, you might feel a little threatened yourself, so you might want to start your own pact, your own alliance. And that's what they do. They create the Warsaw Pact. As you can tell, this is Eastern Europe and in Asia, so the communist countries. It's made up of, say, East Germany, the Soviet Union, Poland, Yugoslavia, Romania, and countries like that. Albania is one of them as well. So not only do they have ideological differences in the Cold War, now they're even competing over alliances. It just keeps going and going. It's deeper and deeper. So they're hating each other in the most minute levels and the most complicated levels. So again, East versus West confrontations. Alright, so let's look at this. There's a communist revolution in China. There's going to be a Korean War, which is South Korea is going to be the democracy, North Korea is going to be communist. There's going to be crisis in Poland and Hungary. And Cuba is going to fall to communism now, so it's spreading closer to the United States now, so the fear gets even greater. The Berlin Wall is going to be constructed. There's going to be missiles put on Cuba. They're going to be pointed directly at the United States. Vietnam War, again, another war fought over communism. The events that are happening in Prague. We got the 70s. We've got the SALT Treaty. We got another SALT Treaty coming up in the 80s as well. The Soviets are going to invade Afghanistan, again spreading. And we're going to the end of the Berlin Wall with the fall of the Berlin Wall and the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. And there's other things that are going to be happening here too with the Chinese Civil War, the Great Leap Forward, the rapid industrialization of agriculture, community farms, which we saw didn't work with the Mao Zedong work that we did about 2 weeks ago, and anywhere from 18 million to 32.5 million died. And we had the Cultural Revolution that are coming on, enforcing socialism by removing capitalism and making Mao Zedong go from being, the goat to the hero, really. I mean, he goes from not killing, but being responsible for millions and millions of deaths to being the man, basically, in China. We didn't necessarily go into this, but this is kind of interesting story if you want to check out in your book. And the Korean War, interesting war. Start off with North Korea absolutely demolishing South Korea to the southern border. And then South Korea, with the help of the United States, pushing all the way up to the Chinese border in North Korea, and then China getting involved and pushing the border back to what it originally was. So at the war's end, there was no land gained for either side. It led to almost nothing. And this is really where a lot of hatred is going to come for Korea that's aimed at us today. I mean, we talked about in class this, the nuclear threats by, North Korea, and this is where it's kind of, this is the seeds of it, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. Majority of the fighting is done between the United States and China here, though. So I'm going to pretty much stop talking now. I'm going to leave you with a scene from Miracle. The movie has to do with the Cold War because it shows the competition between the United States and the Soviet Union. And I want to show you guys the scene. I love it. I'd love to show you other clips of the movie as well, but I fear we can't fit it into the course. There's a time where he's talking to his wife, and she's saying, look, this is more than a game. This is communists versus the United States. Al Michaels, the broadcaster of this game, even says most Americans in 1980 don't know the difference between a blue line and a clothesline, referring to the hockey rink. But everybody in America and everybody in the Soviet Union is watching this because it is democracy and freedom versus the evil communists. And they were probably saying the flip about us. So I'd like you to see this. It's cool. You guys know I love this kind of stuff, so I thought I'd share it with you guys. So I'm going to sign off after this one. So make sure you finish up your work, passing all your work at the end of class. Make sure you get your warm-ups and things like that. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend, and I'm looking forward to seeing everyone Monday. So here we go.
Great moments are born from great opportunity. And that's what you have here tonight, boys. That's what you've earned here tonight. One game. If we played them 10 times, they might win 9. Not this game. Not tonight. Tonight, we skate with them. Tonight, we stay with them. And we shut them down because we can. Tonight, we are the greatest hockey team in the world. You were born to be hockey players. Every one of you. And you were meant to be here tonight. This is your time. Their time is done. It's over. I'm sick and tired of hearing about what a great hockey team the Soviets have. Screw them. This is your time. Now go out there and take it.
Always pumps me up. If you have any questions on today's class, shoot me a tweet. I'll be checking my phone and my iPad, and I'll try to help you out the best I can, hopefully in a timely manner. Again, have a good weekend. Enjoy the rest of your day. See you guys Monday.